Hello, it's Monday morning, so why not do things with paints and glue and sandpaper and stuff like that? Now I'm continuing to work on the famous Ford here. I can tell it's famous because the box says so. Okay, it says those famous Fords. It's one of several models. There's like a GT40, two of them, I think, a GT40 Mark II and a later one. This is the, well, this isn't. This is what is on the box top is not really the authentic 1965 Ford Lotus-Ford that won the Indianapolis 500 because this model is beautifully made. Somehow or other, they managed to keep all the chrome intact and everything, and then painted it to look really nice. And they got the decals. Well, they probably put the decals down and then gloss coated over it. So that they probably did. But there's several things that are just totally wrong. There are no covers over the air intakes. The exhaust is yellow and the real thing. The seat is not like that at all, just not even close. This is historically inaccurate. So I have to say, whoever built this for the box top was an amazing modeler, much more skilled than I am. Okay. Yeah, those two pictures. I mean, way better than I am in terms of skill level. But they built an inauthentic model, and so I'm doing my best to use parts of the kit that are not shown here, like the air covers. Okay. And parts that are shown, like the exhaust, trying to make them look like they should, like the exhaust is yellow. So that's taking a long time. It's going quite slowly, and I'm running into, as always with these models, difficulties with fit and finish and things like that. But I am making some progress that I will show to you, and hopefully show it to you without breaking anything. Friday was an okay day. I was able to get the rear suspension. Let me show that to you. Like knock things over. It's always important to reach over things and knock them over. So keep your work surface really well arranged and cluttered and badly organized so that you can do that. So you can keep knocking stuff around. But here you can see that it's looking like a car. There's front suspension. There's rear suspension. Okay. The disaster on Friday was that because of, just put it this way, the two halves of the wheels, okay, they're not really halves. The two parts of the wheels need to come together in the center of the tire, be cemented, okay, so that they fit, especially the front ones. And that took a lot of pressure like this, okay, to make sure that happened. But it also then split the wheel. It broke it. Basically, it broke the wheel here. And I did my best to put it together, cement it together with contact cement. It looks like it's keeping it from getting worse. But I need to try to, fortunately, it's mostly on the inside of the wheel, and I can put it on the bottom. But it was not good. Well, since I've got this up and open, let me unclamp this one. Let's see how this did. If this one broke also or not. Doesn't look like it broke. Let me see if it fits. handle this with some sort of care, a little bit of care, because it could. Yeah. Okay. So this is okay. What I'll need to do now that I've got this going is that there's raised Firestone letters on there, which I had actually succeeded in making white by using this white charcoal pencil, and I'll do that again. Okay, well, I've got 2 of the 4 done. Do this one next. Why not? I have to do the rear wheels too, otherwise they're not going to work. So, there. But you can see this is the chassis part is it's come along. It's not too bad. There's some places where I need to touch up the paint. I need to do that. There's another part I need to put on here. This is the anti-sway bar. The anti-sway bar gets attached somehow or other. Like this. These little tiny little pins go in those tiny little holes. And there, like that. Except it's not supposed to spring back out. Yeah, you're seeing a fine example of, the eye-hand coordination. That's what that is. And it's all being coordinated here. So that's supposed to go on there like that. And maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll attach that. Why not? The surface is so rough, it just is. Yeah, I'm going to put that away. Set this aside. I'm going to reach over things here. Ta-da, look at that. Yeah, sliding around on the inside of the box. So that's supposed to protect it, but it's sliding around on the inside, making secondary collisions, I think. Okay, in order to do this, I need to take the parts apart in the wheel here. To do that, even though, they're nicely settled in there, because I need to get the paint and the chrome off of these edges so that when I put the cement on, it dissolves and welds the plastic. I want the plastic to weld, and if it's welded, then well. Maybe that kind of day, isn't it? Trying to find a 400. 800s. I'm going to need 600 in a while too. Sometimes it's just trash. I don't throw things out soon enough. I hang on to them for too long. It goes back to being a kid. And having parents who were kids during the Depression. Okay, I'm going to talk old bad stuff. Yeah. So my dad especially had this habit, the consequence of having grown up as a kid during the Depression. His family was very proud because, unlike many of the people around them, they owned a house and they kept it. My grandfather kept his job, so that was all really good. But he learned a lesson, which is if you've got something, you might not be able to get another one. Don't break it. Don't waste it. Right? And I picked that same habit up and have never gotten rid of it. Didn't serve me well, really. I mean, there are certain things like if you get a chemistry set, if you don't use the chemicals, then you're missing the point of the chemistry set. But if you use them, then you're not going to have them anymore. So then what? What do you do then? How does one manage that? How do you manage conflict between the only way you can use this is by using it up and not using it up? The same thing, I got to learn to draw set one Christmas because I thought, I might have some artistic talent, and it came with little charcoal sticks. I think I actually still have them. Seriously. That was another one of those, you can't draw with your charcoal sticks unless you use them. But if you use them, then they're going to be gone, and then you might not ever have them again. And then what? That dilemma, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on your perspective, resolved itself because it turned out that I had no real drawing talent. So even though I very carefully followed the directions and drew a picture of a dog's head that looked, kind of like it did in the instruction manual, I followed the directions, and none of it made sense to me. It's like, why am I drawing rectangles? I'm drawing a dog. Why I'm putting these boxes on here that are just all going to have to be covered up again? And being pretty naive about how that worked, which is like that's what artists do. Is they sketch these things out like that, but I didn't. I just didn't make sense. But I followed the directions. I ended up with this picture of a dog, and in the process, I learned that I really didn't have any artistic talent, and so I didn't use up the charcoal sticks because that was it. I looked at the rest of the drawings in the instruction manual and went, I really can't do this, even if I follow them step by step. I could do paint by numbers because I was really good at staying inside the lines. As you can see when you watch my painting stream, when I do like a mini, which I've done from time to time, I'm really quite good at, as I said, staying inside the lines. So when I was a kid, that I guess I was reinforced for that, for having no creativity. I get a picture to color, so instead of like drawing another picture right on top of that picture, which the creative and clever kids did, I just colored inside the lines. And it's like, oh, you do a great job of staying inside the lines. Yeah. That's how boring people get to where they are. You learn at an early age that staying within the lines is what you do. Trying to decide which should be the outside and the inside of the tire. Do it this way. Last one I did, when I put this piece on, okay, it's supposed to go on here and just push down. I managed to just got cement all over the place. It was a real mess. There's a little thing. There's just a discontinuity in the wheel, and I don't want it right where the Firestone logo is. As a Firestone logo calls attention to that location, and then then you can see the discount. Oh, great. Okay. So this whole thing moves along really slowly, as you can see. So I've got two of the four tires wheels. The tires are fine except when they break, then they're not. I got two of the four wheels cemented together, but I've only got three of these little clamps. Okay, and it needs to set for a day. So that's why it's taking over a week to get the over a week to get the tires, the wheels cemented together. You'd think by the time I got to the third one that I would think, oh yeah, I really should figure out how to pick this up without getting cement all over my fingers, shouldn't I? But no. Great. Yeah, there's going to be all sorts of touch up on here. You can see the sparkly bits. See the sparkly bits down there? For some reason, the paint has come off of the chrome plating. Just the right size to get three clamps on. That was a good thing I discovered when I did the first one, is that I did it with two clamps, and then I thought, there's just enough room to get three on there, and they look very symmetric. It almost looks like a thing that should be a thing, right? Having said that, I think you probably understand what I mean, is that looks like it should be like that. Okay, well, this gets to sit until Wednesday, and then I'll do the fourth one, and then on Friday, the wheels will all be done. Yay, hooray. It's not like anything will come of it, because there some of the last things that go on. Today is just a miscellaneous day. Here's the roll bar. I put some paint on here. And that's just a reflection. Yeah, and then I clipped it here to hold it. I painted it. I'm gonna stick this in here like that, and then paint the other side and put two coats on it, and hope that bit looks okay. There's always touch up that needs to be done later. I'm going to do this first, though. This is the exhaust, which, if you see, this is the real car. See, it's yellow. Okay, yellow. It's not quite the same. Well, it's hard to say if it's the same shade or not. Probably not exactly perfectly the right shade because, it's the paint I had. And then there's the seat, and that's something I've been working on as well. But this was just pieces of plastic, and on the back end here, there was a mold seam. Okay, but then they were actually kind of convex, and auto exhaust are tubes, and they're not solid rods. So I got a little micro drill out and drilled because I'm trying to do like A-level modeling kind of stuff. So that's something you can do is when you're looking at a tube that is made like a rod of plastic instead of a tube, right? That you want it to look like a tube, is you can get these tiny little drill bits, tiny, bitsy little micro drills, and drill it out. I'll probably end up doing the same with the intake ports, the velocity tubes for the engine. But now there's an indentation there, and what I'm going to do, and I will find out if I have success or not, is I'm going to take some flat black paint and an itsy bitsy little brush, tiny little bitty brush, and attempt to put black paint in just those without getting it on the yellow. As it says, it's Monday. What could go wrong? You could probably tell that I'm doing a lot of things that are not in order. They're not in the order of the instruction manual. Part of it is, well, this has to be painted anyway, so let's get it painted. Part of it is, well, this has to be painted anyway, so let's get it painted. And it just, kind of comes along. Even the assembly of the suspensions, the front and rear both, I didn't follow the instructions because they would not have worked. It would have been terrible. It would have been a disaster if I had done what the instructions said in terms of the order in which things were to be done. Here, this is what I wanted. I wanted a clean paper towel instead of just the cardboard. Been going through a lot of paper towels lately. So by putting a piece of clean paper towel down, I get better contrast for, camera stuff. This has been an issue since the very, very, very first day, this is right in front of my face, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. So hopefully, doing this kind of thing, like painting the exhaust, not chrome, but actually painting it yellow like it's supposed to be. So it's not just chrome. Installing these, which these things, I looked at the box top and it was, this model is totally wrong. I'll show that again after I hopefully successfully put little dots of black paint in these openings I made. Well, that didn't work. I managed to do that. I'm going to have to touch that up with a little bit of yellow paint when this dries. Well, that just went really poorly. And it's got black paint all over. Just, just didn't go well. Sure, what happened there? I know what happened there. That was a classic. The brush slipped. Well, I mean, you get the idea, but not the execution. The execution was a solid C minus. It was just badly done, poorly executed here. Hopefully the yellow. Hopefully I'll be able to get the yellow spray paint on there and make them look not bad. You'd think I could have just, put the paint down in the middle and just moved it up to the edges. And made it work, but it didn't go that way. Okay. Fortunately, this is fixable. Worst comes to worst, I just paint it all yellow again and start over. I see part of it is I couldn't see where the tip of the brush was. Yeah, that makes a difference. It really does. It's like you're trying to get the tip of the brush into a certain spot and it's not where you think it is, then it doesn't work. Well, that'll dry sooner than later. It takes about half hour or so. And so I'll come back to this, later and touch it up with some yellow paint. Maybe I'll use the head magnifiers and that'll help me see what I'm doing. I'm going to go ahead and paint this, doing sort of relaxing painting. Why not? Okay, this is just going to be a mishmash of things today as I'm trying to move the model along. I'll look at the instructions and see what the instructions think should happen next. Something dripped or dropped. If you've been watching this, what you've seen is that I spent a lot of time getting rid of chrome plating, which looks really nice and shiny on the box top. But nothing on the real car was chromed, really. Maybe, no, it's just polished aluminum. And so I'm painting all the pieces, different shades of aluminum, some darker and lighter, just sometimes to get a little bit of interesting, hopefully, in. Just looking at this and seeing, did I get the mold seam off? It depends on how the light hits it. Okay, I'm going to set this aside so that I don't knock it over. Maybe the intent is to not knock it over. That's what I'm going to try to do, is to not knock it over. Otherwise, I'd let you watch paint dry, because that happens here on this stream, but not today. I'm trying not to have too many oopses, at least major oopses. Okay. I would bring that box back over again, but that would just endanger the parts. If one was to look at the instruction sheet, which one is doing now, this is done. 2.5 of these are done. And what I mean is that the inner and outer wheels need to be cemented, and that's why this clamping thing is happening. After that, I'm going to wash them off and then put the Firestone hopefully back on again. This is done. All of this is done. This is done. That's all three instruction bits, 3 instruction sections, all about the front suspension. And then the rear suspension only gets 1 set of instructions, and everything here is done except the anti-sway bar. I haven't attached that yet. Now I'm working on this bit here. And a long time ago, I put these 2 parts together and very carefully filled and sanded all of that so that this seam here doesn't show. And this is the roll bar I just painted. This is getting down to tiny little bits of stuff now. The filler caps, okay, the transistorized ignition, these little injection tubes don't come as a set of 4 attached. Each one of the 8 is separate. Okay. So, and the engine cover in the back. So a lot of what I'll be doing now are these parts that I don't have ready, that need to be dechromed and so on. Yeah. I'll show you some other bits, and then eventually it'll come down to getting the decals on, after the whole thing is painted and assembled. The painting process, okay? The painting process would be a lot easier if there wasn't this beautiful yellow stripe down the middle, but there is. And I practiced with this. There's 2 ways of doing this. One is to do it the way the model is done. This clearly is not the raw model. They painted the body because the green plastic doesn't look like this. But this is a decal, or at least it's supposed to be, and it says Lotus powered by Ford here on the front. And there isn't a Lotus powered by Ford here, is there? No. What there is a little Lotus insignia instead. This is the 1964 version. This is the 1964 version. This is the 1965 version. This is the one that is supposed to be the one I'm building. Okay. So I'm going to paint the stripe, and I have a decal set. The decals for the sides of this are not active. They're the 1964 decals. I got a set of decals that are 1965. And there is a big 82. Okay. I was really glad to see that. That goes right on the front after the stripe is painted on. Okay, so that's one of the big differences. And the shape of the nose is different too. And I think I was really concerned that this model would get it wrong, but it's pretty close to being correct. So what I've discovered by testing it is there's two ways to paint a stripe like this. One is to paint the whole thing green. Maybe I should show that to you like this. Well, there's three ways. One is to just put the decal on, but then it looks like a decal, and it's wrong anyway, so it can't be used. So one is to paint it all green and then tape off the green part and leave open the yellow part and then spray it yellow. The other is, this sounds a little counterintuitive, but I'll explain, is to paint the whole thing yellow and then tape over the part that's supposed to stay yellow and paint the rest green. And I tested this because lighter colors like whites and yellows and sometimes even reds, like I learned this on the Savoya, where there was an imperfection in the paint. There was a dark spot on the paint and the rest was white primer, is it showed through. They're translucent colors. Okay. And I tested it, and that's what happened. I tested the green and then painted yellow over it. And even after 3 coats, it still was sort of translucent. And then I painted yellow and taped it off and painted green over it. And the 2 coats of green were sufficient to cover it. And then I remembered that I actually read about this ages ago when I bought a book that said how to make models good. It didn't say that, but that was the point of it. How to make your models look like they're not just slapped together by an 11-year-old kid with too much cement on his fingers. And they used the example of D-Day stripes on planes, which are white stripes. And they said, well, what you should do, they didn't explain exactly why. They didn't say it's because your white paint is going to be translucent. But they just said it'll work better, is you paint the wings white and then tape where you want the stripes to be and then paint your olive drab over that. And then take the tape off and you get stripes. At least that's the way it's supposed to work if you've got nice clean edges. And that's how it's going to work here, because the yellow doesn't cover the green, but the green covers the yellow. A straight stripe like that, that's just fine. That's actually, when I measured it, a 1/4 of an inch, 6.35 millimeters. So the stripe is actually going to be slightly narrower because I can get 6 millimeter wide tape. And I could, run a piece of tape down this side and a piece of tape down that side and then fill it in. So it was 6.35 millimeters. But there's a really good chance that I wouldn't get them perfectly lined up, which is easier to do if it's just one solid piece of tape. Right. So the stripe is going to be 0.35 millimeters too narrow. I don't think that will be really noticeable. I'm going to practice that by putting the stripe on the tail, which you can't see back here, but you can see that the stripe sort of continues there. This goes onto the model like this, and I'm going to tape it so that I don't get paint on the inside of this. And I'll probably just do that taping, I don't know, maybe right now. not right now, but when I'm done talking about what I'm going to do. And now I'm going to paint it yellow. And then tomorrow I'm going to the hobby shop, and hopefully they have 6mm wide masking tape. If not, this is going to take even longer because then I'll have to order it online and wait for it to show up. But that's going to be it. And then I have to figure out how to get this nice swoopy curve here, and then paint on the inside. That's the other thing about the decal is you can see that the paint, the yellow, goes right over the front of the nose and actually inside the nose of the car, the air intake there. And the decal doesn't. It just comes right up to the edge. And so that's another point of inauthenticity. Yeah, the decal set that I got that is historically accurate in terms of the sponsors, you can't see it there on the side of the car, assumed that this would all be painted on because there's a tiny little logo, a little Lotus logo decal, and a big 82 circle, not a stripe. And then the seat, you can see the seat. Look at, see, green with a yellow stripe, not even close to being authentic. And then I realized that the model maker actually did make it authentic because this bit here is molded in right there. Not completely accurately. As I'm looking at it, this is rounded on the top. Okay, maybe I could actually modify that. Should I try? I don't know. Okay, see, it's round. And then there's the two bolsters and the thing in the middle. The size is wrong. Okay, but they got the idea at least. At least it's not that. Okay? At least it's not that. But the idea is there. I could file down. I think I'm going to file down those little ridges. I think I'm going to do that and make it look round. So I'm going to paint that red and then those two bits black in order to make this look kind of like it's supposed to. Okay. One thing I could do is try to fit the seat right onto the bottom, but what I did is I cut it down and set it up so it goes behind it like that, which makes it's really close. It'll be really close to looking accurate. So it is cemented on and painted. That's another thing I played with is, do I cement it on before I install the upper body and then attempt to get this in underneath the steering wheel and the instrument panel? Or do I install this and then slide this up to it and hope that I can get it to adhere correctly? And I think the odds of getting it positioned correctly are higher if I cement it on first. But the odds of breaking something or not having it, the contact cement contacting incorrectly are higher. So I'm going to just continue thinking about how that should be done. But now that I'm looking at this, and it's clearly rounded. I'm going to have to prime this one more time. I don't know. Can only go so far with what you got, right? I mean, in this model, just there's so many things that are not correct about it that if I were a master modeler who really knew what I was doing and had confidence and wanted this to look correct, actually wouldn't start with this model, is I would round that off, but this, yeah, I'm not going to. This was a pleasant surprise. The inside of this, worked on that so many times, and it shows under the primer where it got filled in and sanded down. We'll see how it ends up looking. Is I was inside of this is a screen to keep out dirt and stuff. And I thought, well, I'll probably fabricate that with a piece of screen. But then this showed up in the model kit. It was like a radiator. The car actually had one. It goes right in front of the front suspension, but there isn't any place to attach it there. So it's going to be attached in here. You know, I've tried this like a dozen different times, and sometimes it actually is possible to get that in like that. So when you look in the nose of the car, because somebody will probably, they'll be able to see that there's a like that radiator there instead of nothing. That piece does not show up on the instructions anywhere. It was just like, oh, wow, this is exactly what I needed. It's, well, not exactly. If it was exactly what I needed, it would fit better. Okay. And there would be a place to, adhere it, but there isn't. But it will look good. And I looked up the actual car and pictures of it, and the outside of it was copper. So I did that. Yeah. I just got weird little bits and pieces of things to do today, and I think I'll probably, well, here, the engine covers came in two parts, right? That had to be cemented together, and you can see the seam line here. It's very prominent. So I did spend a fair amount of time on Friday sanding all of the chrome off and hopefully making the seam disappear. See how it turns out once it's primed. I can't feel it. Right? So it's there's much less of it there than there was previously. So maybe a little bit right there. So yeah, I'm going to do the same thing here. It'll take a while. It's little awkward places, and the seams are nasty. I didn't go all the way down to the edge here because I want those rivets to stay. You know, the designer put those little rivets on there. So this one will end up looking like this, and then it'll be primed and it'll be white. Yeah, I cluttered things up pretty well here. But yeah, this is getting to the point now where just assembling things is going to have to wait for the body to be painted, and that'll have to wait until I get get some of the tape. Here, I'm just do some taping, and then I'll do touching up on the exhaust here because that didn't go that well, and then I will sand this down. And then I'll look at the instructions and probably start pulling off those itty little pieces, tiny little pieces that that need to be prepared for painting. I should do it this way. Put the tape in the difficult to tape place. Do that first. It extends way too far out. You can see that. So I will cut that off with a scissors. I'll only do that now, because when I try to put the tape on the other side, this will be in the way. I find that these little toy scissors, I don't know why, but they actually do end up working better than just really expensive, like sewing shears and stuff. Yeah, and this is the thing that shouldn't happen, is that the tape folds over. I don't want that to be green, so I want the tape on the edge, on the inside, but not folded over onto that. Okay, there. Kind of lucky it is actually large enough to get a finger in there. Nice, I left a gap. Terrific. Gap closing tape. Trim that off. And then there's a hole here, way down there, that I actually do need to fill in. Otherwise, when I spray paint it, the whole thing will be, yellowed. It's kind of like watching a kindergarten class, isn't it? Okay, take your safety scissors and very carefully cut away the excess tape. So I'm looking at this. Actually, the whole inside needs to be taped. Right? Well, because I'm going to be spraying this way, and I don't want the whole inside to be turning yellow. Broken stick. No, that's just not going very well, is it? What I found is this is just a property of tape. Okay, If you want it to stick to something and not to your finger, that's not going to happen. It's just going to stick to your finger. You know, if you don't want it to stick there, but you want it to stick somewhere else, it's just going to stick there where you don't want it. It's just the way tape is. And there's probably some sort of secret thing that you can do to, you know, make this work the way it should, but I haven't found that. I just haven't. I've tried using tweezers. I'm going to try that again. You know, try using tweezers, because then you can just, you know, kind of push the tape down kind of to where you want it and stuff, but then it sticks to the tweezers. Huh. Of course it does. Here, no, I've got triple layers of tape on the same spot over and over again, and not where I want it. Yeah. What I really, the good thing about this, though, if there's a good thing about it at all, is that it's just tape. Okay. And it's all going to come off, and even though this is sort of wasteful, I'm wasting tape by taping over tape instead of taping over the part that I want to be taped. You know, and I don't. You heard me talk about that just earlier. Is that I grew up. Don't ever waste stuff like this. You might never have tape again. I mean, there's that sort of sense of, of not wasting stuff. But, you know, I've grown up and I've discovered that I probably can get tape again. And that just keep sticking tape on until it's all taped up like that. Now it's all taped up and it looks messy. It looks really messy, but it's taped up. Okay. So the thing here is to make sure that the tape is tight against all the edges, especially along the front here, and that it doesn't fold over onto the showing the part that's showing there, because I want that to be green. And, you know, if there's a problem with it, like if the green paint gets inside, I will touch it up, especially down here where it will show. I can touch it up with the metallic paint again. Right. So this is just going to get painted yellow. Oh, well, that's a good question, isn't it? I need to hold this so that I can get the paint all the way around it. Oh. Yep. Okay. What I've just seen, and I hadn't noticed this with all the times, is that if you can see it here, there's a lip there, an edge where the plastic, and there's some here too, where either the chrome plating or the plastic is in the way. And I should have noticed that a long time ago, but I didn't. And now I need to sand that off. There's no way around it. It needs to come off. Because it will be a serious flaw, a very, very obvious flaw when this tail cone gets attached. Probably better that I catch it now than after it's all painted yellow and green and then I have to redo it. Probably chrome plating, just excess that's showing up there. But there is always something, always, always, always something. Hopefully it's a tiny little edge and I don't need to reprime the whole thing just because of this. But it was, I need to use some slightly coarser paper here. 800. It just, the piece was just too simple and too easy compared to some other things. And a lot of this is just a matter of perspective. It's just everything looks fine until the light just managed to catch it. There it was. I have to keep saying this when I built this when I was like 12 or 13 or who knows what, 66. Would have been like 14 or 15. Yes, I definitely would not have noticed this, and if I did, I wouldn't have cared. But that's why now these models that I would have built, in just a couple of hours over a weekend end up taking like, I don't know, 50 or 60 hours of your time if you watch this. Was it on Friday? I was talking about our 1965 Ford Galaxy that broke in half because of rust. It was kind of shocking, that it lasted as long as it did without totally rusting out, because rust proofing was, well, metal preparation just isn't, it just wasn't what it is now. Now, unless you've got a weird thing like Chrysler Dodge Plymouth minivans back in the 2000s, I forget what it was. The tailgates and the bottoms of the doors they just rotted. Every single one of them. It was just a flaw in metal preparation. or maybe if it wasn't the preparation of the metal, it was the making sure that the water that would get in didn't seep out through the seep holes. Whatever it was pretty bad. But now, I mean, I've got a family member. It's a Honda. I think it's a Honda Accord. It's something like 25 years old. Seriously, and it's just their daily driver. And there's no rust on it, and it's in a Midwestern state in an urban environment where there's salt on the roads all the time. So whatever they did, that worked really well. But back in the 60s and into the 70s, the materials just weren't there. We tended to hold on to vehicles, like that. So following that, just because of the availability, our next vehicle, because it was another family hand-me-down purchase, was a pickup truck. We didn't really want a pickup truck, but we got a pickup truck, and it turned out to be useful because we started a little hobby of antiquing. So we'd go to farm auctions and buy antiques, and then go and once, like 3, 4, or 5 times a year, we'd set up a table and sell them. And actually, pretty much what it did is it paid for our gas to go and buy things at antique auctions. It's more of a hobby than a business. But it was kind of a fun thing to do. Buy low, sell high, find treasures, move them on to another home. So that one eventually succumbed to rust as well. I ended up donating it because there was a nonprofit, and they said, "Oh, what are you doing with the truck?" And I said, "Well, it's still running, but it's pretty, starting to show rust." And it's all, yeah, we can use it to help move people because it's a truck, right? You can fill it with furniture and move people, and that's part of what they did. So I just gave them the truck. Eventually, it they didn't really maintain it very well. And so it sort of stopped running, but it sat in the parking lot for a while, like over winter. And when it was towed away, this is another true story. When it was towed away, there was a rectangle. There was a rectangle on the ground of rust and flaking paint, as particles just kept dropping off of this pickup truck in the parking lot. Again, it was one of those things where it was just a wreck. The wheel wells around the box was okay, but the wheel wells had just rotted out. And so the rear fenders were pretty much just gone. It was pretty hilarious. And then things started, like a headlight became kind of loose because the inside of the mounting was not good. Okay. Oh, yeah. I was going to do something because I need to hold on to this. So I did this and it failed before, is I have this sticky tack stuff over here. I'm going to get some. This is different than the stuff on the holder. It's different than that. It's stickier. And I did this once before, but I put it on the outside of something, and then it stayed sticking. And it took a long time to clean it off of the plastic. But in this case, the thing I'm sticking it to is the tape on the inside. Could use this stick, and I'm going to use a popsicle stick. I think it'll give me. Here. Now, when the sticky tack sticks to the tape, that isn't going to matter because the tape is all coming off anyway. But now I can hold it and put a glove on and spray the paint on it. Okay. This is ready to turn yellow. And when I get the tape, my 6mm tape, I will run it right around and then spray it green. And when I take the tape off, I should have a nice clean-edged yellow stripe right down the center of the tail cone. Let's put it in here while I am, well, I probably can paint it yellow tomorrow. You can probably do that. Maybe I should leave it out. If I leave it out, I might remember to do that. Speaking of yellow, if you remember this, I very clumsily, messily painted the insides of the tubes of the exhaust and made a mess of it. So now I'm going to attempt to fix that by painting the yellow over the black. Use the spray paint for this. Very cleverly close this up because if I spray the paint, who knows, it might spatter. And I'm going to put head magnifiers on so I can see what I'm doing. I hope that'll make a difference. And I will use a brush. It will also hopefully let me see where the tip of the brush is. So let me see if I can make this all work. If not, I'll just sand it all off and try again. So this works. You can see it here. I could do some green touch up. I sprayed some of the paint in the bottom of this container and just dip the brush in it. Because all I need are tiny little dots of it. I don't need the little hairs and dust though. I've got a puddle. I got a little puddle of paint. Okay. So that's not working at all. The problem is, yep. The problem here is that, and I've had this happen before, that this is not an acrylic, and it dissolved the paint under the black paint. It just dissolved it. And so instead of painting over it, it made a mess of it. And what I'm going to have to do now, in addition to getting some lacquer thinner out so I can clean the brush, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to sand down the end of this so that it's just raw plastic and then paint the yellow. This is really unfortunate. I should have just been much more careful with the black to begin with. It was such an easy thing to do. It was a very easy thing to do, and I just made a mess of it. The other option, maybe there's another option. This the very, very tip of this is I do have the acrylics. There's a yellow that comes close to that. There's a yellow that comes close to matching that. Then I can use that. Yellow is the closest. Well, I need for it to wait. I need for it to dry. Okay, well, that was a thing that didn't work today. Okay. The simple task of painting the insides of that indentation black was poorly executed, and my effort to correct it was a fail. So there. Not an unusual event on this stream. This is learning. This is a how-to show by learning how to by seeing how not to. That's what happened here. There's a clear example of learning how to do that by first of all failing and showing how not to. After this dries, I am just going to sand it down a little bit on the edge. I think I need to do that. Even the yellow acrylic isn't going to cover. So, yeah, some delicate sanding, and then sort of touching up. And this thing that was supposed to look really cool, oh, look, the exhausts are clear, but it just got all messy. Failure of execution. So what's to be done? What's to be done is I'm going to put it in the box, let it dry, and then remember to get back to it later and spend some time sanding this down. Because, it has to be done. So I might as well do it. I was using the 600 or the 800? I can't remember. I think I was using the 800 because I didn't want to get scratch marks all over it. Start with this and see how it goes. The higher the number, the finer the grit. And the finer the grit, on one hand, it doesn't leave scratch marks that need to be polished out, or at least they polish out much more quickly. Touch with a file, which does leave scratch marks, but I'm not going to file it down very close to the surface. Just speed things up a little bit. That's the intent. Hopefully the execution will be better than it was with the tailpipe. This is where it attached, that blob there. That's where it attached to the sprue when it was molded. And it's just a big blob of plastic that's sticking out. That needs to be made to go away. Taking off almost all of the chrome except right along the edge here where the rivets are. The main thing I'm trying to do is get the seam between the two parts to disappear. Right along the edge here, it's difficult because there's the sprue plastic and the parts don't line up perfectly. You can see you can see the shininess of the chrome where it's not sanded off yet because it's below the level of the rest of the plastic. And when it's all kind of a uniform color with no shiny spots, then I know that I've got it to where it needs, close to where it needs to be at least. But it's not close now. I need to make this go away. Fumes. Yeah, there's a lot of a mess there. A lot of discontinuity. Always should have, at least for this, started with the 600 and then moved to the 800 and then move to the polishing. The issue, and this is right on the front, or actually the back, and if you're looking at it, you turn it around, you look at the back, and this is going to be highly visible. So the flaw becomes a significant flaw, a highly visible flaw. And this is why, especially on this model, probably more time is spent sanding than anything else in the construction process. Because of sprue marks and mold marks and seams and all these just nasty flaws that show up. Especially if it's gloss paint. Need to do this, but need to speed this up a little bit here. So yeah, it's spending a lot of time sanding down and trying to make disappear seams. Marks. And then sometimes go through all that trouble and get the surface prep And what I did with the Savoya is all that time at the surface prep and then spray paint it and miss a spot and then try to hold it up to the light to see, and then it fell on the floor and the whole thing needed to be, it was just a lot of rework. It's really quite easy to spend, half an hour doing nothing more than this, and then spend like 5 seconds, like with the tailpipe. Spend a lot of time sanding it down and going out of my way to get a mini drill to drill those little holes in the back for the exhaust, and then have the paint mess up. Yay. And then sometimes they can be easily fixed, and sometimes, like on the Apollo model, it involved just repriming and starting over. This is pretty decent sandpaper, but it fills quickly. The sanding dust, little particles of the stuff that are sanded away, fill in the grit. And when the grit gets filled in, then it doesn't sand anymore. I'm taking most of the chrome off. I have seen this over and over and over again. The paint doesn't adhere very well, even after it's primed, to the chrome. And then, there's just tons of spots on the suspension parts that need to be touched up because the paint has come off of the chrome plating, and the chrome plating is peeking through and just shining where it shouldn't be shining. But you can see the seam here where the two parts came together. It's just real obvious. It's even more obvious with a little shiny line here. Okay. That means that one part is higher than the other part. And when that disappears, which seems to be taking an amazingly long time, then that means that it will not be as visible as it was before. I can't say it'll be invisible. I'd like it to be. If it isn't, then I need to do some filling and resanding. Spots right here. You can still see the tiny little glint right there where it's glinting, tauntingly glinting. The divot there either. sand along the whole length here. Hopefully, eventually, it will be gone. I remember from the other one, this is an especially bad area down here. Yeah, this side is way higher than that. I can even feel it with my finger. It's like a big ridge there. I'm going to do what I usually don't like to do, which is to use a coarser grade of paper just to get that going. There was something I was going to talk about today. I was chatting with some people over the weekend about how would I, what am I going to use to fill the time today? And it was a good idea. And now I can't remember what it was. Maybe it was about cars. I think maybe it was about, options. So especially in the 60s and 70s, his cars were almost custom built. I mean, they were still mass produced, but what I mean by that is that there was the standard meaning it was included in the base price. All the cars had it. That's what it meant by standard. It's like every one of these that we made has this, like a steering wheel and 4 wheels, you would think. Okay. And then there were options, things that weren't included on every vehicle, but that you would pay extra for. You could add to it. And it was just, went to an old car show the weekend before last. And there were, not only old cars, but there were ads for old cars, kind of turned into posters and put up all over the place as part of the ambiance of the event. And there was one, I think I talked about this a little bit. One was for a Thunderbird, which was, kind of a luxury car. And this, at the time, this was in the late 60s, I think. And you could get power steering, power brakes, and power windows, but they were all options. You had to pay extra for them. They weren't included. And some things were at the time kind of a luxury thing, like power windows. The technology wasn't that advanced, and so you paid extra for something that usually broke. Seriously, because that's just how it was. But you could do that. But the thing that was surprising was that the radio was an option. you had to pay extra to get a radio. And it didn't even say like AM, FM, you know, super whatever, like an upgrade. It wasn't like an upgrade. It just said radio. If you wanted a radio, you had to pay extra for it. And the other thing, I mean, you could maybe understand that air conditioning at the time would have been an option. You'd pay extra for it. But the heater was an option. Expected that most cars, but I don't know, maybe, you know, they sell cars. People in the South maybe didn't want to pay extra for a heater because, you know, it doesn't get cold enough to justify it. I'm not sure. So we used to actually joke about that. When you buy a car and it's like you go to the dealer and it says, well, yeah, this is the base price for this car. How many wheels you want with that? It's like, oh, well, you know, the manufacturer kind of throws in 2 wheels, but if you want more, you probably want to opt for this car will roll option. Get yourself 4 wheels. At one point, I think I talked about spare tires. You know, you don't have those anymore. They just don't exist. You get it's called in the business a slime kit, which is an aerosol can that inflates the tire and spews this gooey rubber stuff on the inside that's supposed to seal a small leak. Okay. And before that, there was the miniature tires, small. It was a full-sized wheel because it had to fit on the wheel on the brake, you know. But the tire itself was small, compact. That's right. They called it a compact spare because it took up less room in the trunk of the car. There was a time when you could order a car with a full-size spare as opposed to a compact spare, but that was an extra. I was looking at vehicles, I don't know, a couple of months ago. I was kind of curious about, you know, replacing one of our vehicles. What would it be like to have to replace it now? And I was surprised to find there were 2 things about it. One is there were very few options. There were maybe three or 4 standards, okay, different trim lines, and most of the differences were cosmetic. But there were others like safety features and so on that were more than cosmetic. And it was, well, you know, I would really like to have these, you know, like an extra adaptive cruise control or lane keeping assistance or something like that. But the only way to get it, you couldn't just order that. You couldn't just say, I would like this thing. You had to order, you know, package 2, which came with like 5 things that I didn't want, like special stitching on the seats or something. But that was the only way to get these other features. You know, and the other features might have cost maybe $700 or $800, but this package would be $1,500 because it included all sorts of other junk. I found that really annoying. It's like, I know there's this thing that everybody wants, and so we're not going to put it in the base. Okay, because everybody's going to want it, and so everybody who wants it has to move up to the next trim line and spend $1,500 more than they would have otherwise. I found that it was just really cynical, you know. Oh, and the other thing that they're doing now, I don't know if it was just this one manufacturer or if it's kind of a plague on the entire auto industry, is You could either get a white car or a black car. And if you wanted a color, it was $500 more. If you wanted a blue car or a red car. Okay. Seriously. Yeah. You couldn't. I thought that was. I found that actually pretty annoying. But again, I think it was like just a way of, oh, look, the base price on this is really pretty reasonable, and look what you can get for the money. And then if you wanted anything like not white or not black, then it was this big upcharge. It was almost as bad, maybe even worse than back in the day when we used to joke, "Oh, you want four wheels? Oh, yeah, you have to get the rolling package. You wanted doors. Well, then you're going to have to be the enclosed cabin option package." There were certain things that dealer installed options. Okay, that was actually a big deal that they didn't put them in at the factory, but it was to increase the dealer profits. Is that they were the only way you could get them was to have the dealer install them, kind of like on an aftermarket basis. Floor mats were like that. You think, well, what's the big deal about floor mats? You're probably looking at next to nothing in terms of cost. But if you wanted floor mats, you have to get them from the dealer, because that was the deal that the manufacturers made with the dealers. And then you get the salespeople who just give you a nod and a wink and say, if you buy this today, I'll throw in the floor mats and not charge you extra for them. And it's like, ooh, wow. I guess we better take that deal, because otherwise we wouldn't have floor mats. It really, I don't know. So they've gone from everything is an option to practically nothing is an option, except the stuff that you want. The only way you can get it is by going into an entirely higher trim model and pay at least twice, sometimes three times as much for all sorts of things that you didn't particularly want in order to get the things that you didn't want. Well, business has not gotten all that much better. Okay. Well, you can still see the seam here because there's a slightly different color. Okay. But I don't feel it. And so the question then is, after it's painted, will that show up? And part of it then is to put some primer on it. Like, it disappears here. Pretty much gone there. Needs to get some primer on it and see what it looks like then. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll need to sand down the bottom of this. I'll try to prime these between now and Wednesday. Taking the chrome off the bottom because it's going to be cemented on, or adhered to the rest of the body. Right. So what I've got between now and Wednesday, besides just a mess, let's see, one of these. Yeah, work surface clean. Not keeping it clear today is these can be primed. I think I'm going to do that in 2 steps. I need to get it underneath here. So I think I'll prime them like this and then turn them over and prime them. Otherwise I'm not going to be able to get under here. And I'm going to say that chances are at least 50-50, maybe higher, that I'm going to have to do some additional sanding and maybe even a little filling and then sanding in order to get those looking the way they should. It's a very high probability of that. Let me just do one thing at a time here. I'm going to try to finish one thing before moving on. I wonder where all my cardboard went. I used to have a whole pile. Oh, there it is. Little bits of cardboard. So because the spray paint from the primer blows these around, so I tape them on using this and then flip them over, and yeah, this was used for painting some of the Savoia, as you can see, because it's all red. Probably like 70% of the paint using a spray paint ends up not going on the part and ends up going all around it. Very wasteful. So these are going to get primed. This is going to get yellowed. And then if I am successful in getting the tape from the hobby store, this will then be striped. So I'm going to yellow this between now and Wednesday. And if I'm successful in getting the tape tomorrow, then on Wednesday I will tape over where the stripe is going to go on the outside and then paint it green. And on Friday, if all of this happens, all sorts of big ifs, these are big ifs. If all of that happens, there will be a green tail cone with a really nice 6mm wide yellow stripe. And if there isn't, then I will be spending a good deal of time sanding all of the paint off and starting over. And I will have learned a lesson before I do the front of the car. Another learning how to learning how to do it by doing it wrong. This is a how to by how not to. Take this with me so I can stick it in there. All right. Now I'm going to try to fix the mess that I made by trying to make this look cool. Try to very carefully sand off black paint so that I can touch it up with yellow paint. Because the yellow paint dissolves the black paint, and in so doing, made a mess. Get the black paint off, then the yellow paint won't dissolve it because it won't be there. That's the thought anyway. So yeah, I was talking about options. Still hasn't gotten any better. It just changed. You know, we've moved along from do you want doors with that to oh yeah, you want this essential thing that everybody wants, but you can't have it unless you get all of these other things that nobody else wants because it comes as a package, and that's the only way you can do it. It's not in has not enhanced the experience. It looks better already. Look at it through the head magnifiers and see if I got it clean. And if I did, then I'll try the yellow paint again. Okay, well, why not? If worst comes to worst, just keep doing stuff until it works. Cap doesn't fit. Don't even try. Yeah, it's so translucent. It just doesn't cover. I might be able to get this to work if I put like 2 or 3 coats on. Not the worst thing in the world. Just kind of disappointing. Yeah, so I'm going to try to build this up a little bit. Dry. See how it looks. And maybe do it again. Maybe not. Not too bad right now. I don't want it to be up like this. I don't want it to drip. Hmm. Okay, I'm just going to leave this and then come back to it some other time. Lacquer thinner thing again. Okay, well, clock is hidden. Great. That was a failure. I couldn't even get lacquer thinner on the paper towel. Those tailpipes might be, you know, they might be okay for the admonition to, if you put your model on display, have slightly indirect lighting and don't let anyone get closer than 18 inches. And I think that's the level of accomplishment that I have there. This way it fumes. Got a Green Bay football container here now. Do that occasionally. All right. It's at noon. I got it. Another hour. Grab my other glasses. These are my. I need to see further than a foot. Yeah. Okay. I'm supposed to go for another hour. Yeah. Trying to think through what I'm doing here. What I'm doing is trying to think through what I'm doing. I've got oh, okay. Let me put this last bit on here. I got the parts, so I might as well do it. It's the anti-sway bar that goes between there and there. These are the tires, the front tires. This one has to be clamped like that. I'll do that on Wednesday. And this is, I need to look at the instructions to make sure it's oriented correctly. Yeah, okay. You know, it seems kind of trivial, but it's supposed to be on here, so I'm going to stick it on. Whoa. Weird. Just it hasn't been a single time when I've been able to open this without the pliers. Some of it gets into the cap, and it holds. And I try to clean it off, but it doesn't always come clean. So this is contact cement. I need to put little bits of it on these tiny, tiny little contact points. The only good thing about the size of those contact points is that they're smaller than the tiny little holes into which they go. Set it down. Clunk. Yeah, that was smooth. No matter how careful I am, I just get stuff all over my fingers. I'm kind of surprised I haven't gotten more paint on them. Now, that's not even a color I was using today. Okay, this is supposed to set for a bit. That's the nice thing about contact cement is it's supposed to just set there for like 15 minutes or so. I never do. I always get impatient and stick it beforehand. But you can let it set for up to 2 hours before it doesn't contact itself anymore. And that was really good for this because there's like 4 little pieces that all needed to fit together. And I was able to put the cement on all of the contact points and the holes, get it all done, and not have to rush to put it together. And then there was still a little bit of give in it if they didn't line up perfectly. So there was that. As you can see, the part doesn't fit perfectly. It's to it's far from perfectly, but there it is. It's now attached. But, yeah. Oh, maybe it needs to go. Okay, I better check this out. This might need to go up above this. Okay, I need to, what did I put here? Oh, damn it. Nice. Okay, well, this has to fit. This has to fit underneath the anti-sway bar. It actually needs to be up. Just tilt it back a little bit. And it's warped. Of course it is. Okay, well, I just made a mess of it all. What I need is shim. Need is the thing that I had here that was in the way. Oh, a piece of paper. Mm-hmm. I'll use some of this. I need something to hold this back, like that, but not not that much. The anti-sway bar is suede. Just gonna do that. Pretty much what I need is I need to just put that in between there like that. No, nothing's going to work. it might just always be slightly bent because the plastic itself is slightly bent. I mean, there's nothing I can do. It's going to have to be that way. I mean, I could probably find a way to fix that, but it requires eye-hand coordination and something I don't have. I just don't have what I need. What I needed to have done was I needed to have discovered that it is warped and tried to unwarp it by heating it and bending it before I installed it. But I didn't do that. All right. I'm going to close that box because it's just going to be a problem if I don't. But I installed that piece. Ta-da. This paint is now dry. I'm going to take it off of there and set it in the box before I forget about it. And what I will probably need to do is need to look at the instructions and see. What I will see when I look at the instructions is that there are all these little bits, oil filler caps and injection tubes, injection ram tubes, which are velocity stacks. Okay. Side view mirrors, tailpipe supports, and a Nerf bar. It's a bumper. For some reason, there's a rear bumper on this thing. I need even the knockoff. Oh, these are tiny little bits. All of those little bits need to come off the sprues, and they need to be sanded down so that the sprue bits aren't marring it anymore. And it all needs to be done without me losing any of them. So before I do that, I'm going to talk about Dyson Dungeons, because that's what this is about. Dyson Dungeons is a group of family and friends. And what do we do? We put on a Dungeons and Dragons show. And we do an episode like 3 times a month. It is not just watching people play a game. It is a show, which means that it's entertaining. You should watch it. You will enjoy it. You will enjoy it if you watch it or listen to it or both. This stream started because we make our own dungeon tiles, like these. Okay, and this. And they're on the 3D printers. These are 3D printed, and then they were primed and painted and washed and detailed, and then they look like wood. Okay. But the cool thing about them is that they have ball magnets in the bottom so that they can be, you don't need a special surface or anything. Okay. They stick to each other and they come apart. They hold just really quite well, but they also come apart easily so they can be rearranged. And we do that on our show when we are in a place that requires them, which happens, from time to time. And we have, I don't know, each iteration is better and better. These earlier versions had plates on the bottom and the ball magnets went in and the plates were attached. The more recent version, because we now have a new 3D printer, there isn't any plate. It prints and the wells for the ball magnets are there. And it says, "Oh, I'm ready." Slip the ball magnets in and it finishes the print so that you don't have to worry about anything ever breaking. And we have doors that work. And you can see in the old version where the hinge pins went through, okay, and needed to be attached on the top. The new version, that whole thing is invisible. So that when this is painted and this is what it looks like when it's just off the printer. when it's painted, then it would look really cool like this. This is cut stone like this. This is what it looks like when it's painted. Okay. This one has a built-in fire sigil for a fire mage situation. And that got all hand painted on a stream many streams ago. But, it still works. So that's how this stream got started. And when there isn't any dungeon tile to paint, and that's most of the time, then I work on building models and reliving my youth when I used to hide in the basement away from the rest of the family where it was nice and cool and quiet. And I built models like this one. I built the original kit. This isn't an original kit, but it's still a vintage kit. The original one came out in like 66. This was a mid-70s reissue. It's the same, they just used the same model and the same box cover and everything. But yeah, I'm building a model that's almost 50 years old. It was a moment. It was mint in box. It was still cellophane wrapped with the original price tags, and I mean in perfect condition, collector condition. And I ruined $50 worth of value. Just destroyed $50 worth of value by opening the box. And this is what it would look like if I left all the chrome on it, and somehow or other it was able to get it put together to make it look like this, like somebody who really knew what they were doing did this. But this is historically totally incorrect. Just there's hardly anything about this that's right. Okay, and so I'm trying to make it look much more like the real thing is supposed to look. Okay, by painting the exhaust yellow, using painting on the stripe instead of using historically incorrect logos, getting rid of the chrome and painting with aluminum colors, okay, instead of this all shiny stuff. So, yeah, detailed interior, totally, completely authentic, detailed interior. Very sad. But now there's more parts that I haven't taken off the sprues yet, some of which are really tiny. That's why I've got this box. So that when I don't lose them, hopefully, when I am able to get them off without losing them, I can put them in this little box so that they won't just disappear. I might as well keep this out. At some point, this will need to, this has a stripe across it here. And it's really messy. Maybe I'll work on this a little bit. I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to start cutting some of these off and getting them ready to be primed. Since I've got some priming to do anyway, whatever I can get done in the next 15, 20 minutes, 20, 25 minutes, I'll do that. I'll get those primed as well. Maybe I'll start working on some of the bits that go onto the, if I'm looking at the instructions, these bits here, the filler caps and the ignition, the roll bar is already done. These bits here kind of go into this body. Well, it doesn't matter. This can go on and this can go on. It can go on in different sequences. Make sure I've got them all. Those are the mirrors. There's the thing I was looking for. That's the transistorized ignition. You can tell it's transistorized because it says so. I use the saw to cut them off so that I don't break the part. Okay. And I can leave a little bit of sprue on the part. So, yep, I was afraid that would happen. Fortunately, it didn't fly onto the floor. I'm going to actually do the mirrors. These mirrors are a real problem because this is the mirror side, nice and shiny, with an indentation right in the middle of it, which is not how a mirror is. The mirror, if anything, was slightly concave. It didn't have a hole in the middle. But that's all part of the molding process because that's a fairly big part and the mold didn't fill. Either didn't fill completely with plastic or it shrank as it cooled. In either case, it is unacceptable. Some of these are fuel fillers and some are oil fillers. One is supposed to be able to tell the difference. Fuel fillers are these. I'll probably get them wrong. And so cleaning off the sprue so that it doesn't show without losing the part. That's going to be a trick. I'll try to make that happen. Yeah, you can't see it. There. Tiny bits. Tiny little shiny bits. So the process of cleaning these up, getting them primed and painted and installed without losing them. Yeah. That is the thing. So far, so good. The chrome plating is such a problem. I mean, it's very nice and shiny, but it gets in the way of the glue. It gets in the way of cleaning them up because it's hard to see the flaws because everything is just glaring. I'm going to take this thing off. Really, nice, nicely done. It broke. I mean, it snapped right there. Even as I was sawing it, up here, it's so fragile. Great. Well, I'm going to try to attach that. Too bad that it's such a visible part. It's the rear bumper, the nerf bar. Right there. Right there. That's not even, look at that. It's not even, it's just, the only thing that's holding it on is a little bit of I think the chrome plating. I mean, it's just not there. It's not attached. Wow. Okay, that's going to be more. I thought this would be an easy part, and it's turning out that that's going to be a real challenge. Well, get these tubes out to them. Well, I thought it was just me that I snapped the part off, but even the other side isn't attached either. A serious flaw in the manufacture there. I'm not sure I'm going to get much done here today. It's just okay. These are like suspension parts for the rear suspension. Those go on near the end. These are the wheel spinners that go on each of the four wheels, so that can wait. These are somehow or other, these tiny little bits here are supposed to somehow hold the front wheels on before those go on. This thing that looks like a wrench, that holds up this thing that is broken. I'm going to go ahead and take this off because this is the part, this is a kind of part I'm going to forget later. Okay, so all that's going to be happening with these parts is that there's going to be some light sanding on them, but they're so tiny that I'm almost certain to drop them or break them or lose them or something. So I'm going to not manipulate these yet this stream. You know, I know everybody loves tedious sanding, especially when the parts are so tiny you can't even see what I'm doing, and I can't even see what I'm doing. Okay, I know everybody loves that more than anything, but unfortunately, it's just I'm going to give them a quick look over and then move on. What I will be doing though is, okay, these stacks, these are good. There's an opening in them. Yeah, if I can get them rounded around the top, these I think I can work with. Yeah, I almost lost one. It almost flicked way over. Okay, this has got all sorts of lumpy chrome plating on it that has to get cleaned up. There's 4 of these. Those, wow, I'm not sure how I'm going to fix that. I need to work on that someday when I've got eye-hand coordination. But the mirrors, because of the indentation on there, I am going to put filler in there so that I can sand it down so it's smooth. And I won't have this really, this is the one place on the entire model where I'd like to have the chrome plating, okay? Where I would work really hard to preserve it. But I don't think I can install mirrors that a hole in them. I might ask, is it more important for it to be shiny, or is it more important for it to not have a divot? Of course, if I drop them and lose them, it's a moot point, isn't it? I'm going to have to sand them down after the filler is in. I'm going to use the, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to stick to the chrome or not. I might have to do more than one. It's just so horribly annoying. The sprue was attached here, and then there's this rim of, I think it's model. I think it's supposed to be like that. It's like the rim around the mirrors. So, of course, the sprue is attached on the outside, right? This is where it attaches to the car. So the sprue attached on the outside where it's most visible, anywhere at all. They couldn't just do it like right where it's attached here, where this tab disappears. Why is there a pop-up? There. No, there isn't. No, they could attach it to the sprue right here, where that tab disappears into the body of the car. But no, they put it on the very outside so that by taking that off, I could destroy the rim that they molded into the mirror. Wow. Just not amazing. Not amazing. Here. They need to set on something. Hopefully this will hold them. I want them to be kind of horizontal. That was good. I pulled it off. Then it slipped out of my fingers and almost fell. I wonder how many of these I'm going to drop on the floor and then spend a lot of time crawling around trying to find them. We should take bets. Okay, all these little tiny pieces need to be cleaned up because there's sprue marks on them. And then the one part over there, that's the biggest of them all that I thought would be the easiest, has just the most messy chrome plating of anything. And one half broke off and the other one's definitely breaking off because it's not attached. So that'll be fun. This one I might work on this a little bit yet if I've got a couple minutes left here. The door is in the way of my clock. I've got several different kinds of filler. This is a really shallow indentation. I would try the green putty, but I'm not sure if that's going to work that well on this. I might have to do more than one application. A lot of this will depend on how much it shrinks when it dries. I'm just coating the whole surface because I want it to be convex. In fact, maybe, depending on how this dries, it might be just how I want it. It might be a really nice convex. That would be too. That would be just too much to ask. To be a nice convex surface. Otherwise, what I'm going to have is I'm going to have way too much on here. And it'll take forever to sand. We'll see how it goes. I mean, it'll take a long time to sand it down, but it'll happen eventually. Clean off the rim without getting the guck on the inside. Which I almost did until I didn't. Okay, well, this is going to sit until Wednesday. Yeah, this is looking. You know, I'm thinking this is looking okay. This stuff. You know, that little bit of black around, it just kind of makes it look like it's dirty, like from the exhaust. I'm just going to leave this alone. I'm going to declare that a success and say that looks okay, and put it in the box here with the roll bar and the radiator. Not put this near the other one because the magnet in the base will make it go flying. So what I've got here is the third wheel out of 4 being clamped. I've got a whole bunch of little parts that need to be de-sprued. I've got a scissors that's in the way. I've got some black paint that can be put away. I've got things to be primed, and I've got a little bit of time. I'm just going to work on this. If I can get this done, then I can prime this along with the other bits. What have I got? It might be enough time. I don't know. Let's find out. What I'm doing is it's just flaws from the molding. You can see here, see like that ridge there and this here. It's just too much plastic oozed out. It's just plastic that oozed out and formed little bits of just excess that are ugly and look ugly and will mar the surface. Okay, like the real thing just didn't have lumps there. Delump it. You can really see it on this side. Yeah, you can really see that. It's all part of trying to make a plastic model look good. I remember test fitting this early on and finding that it actually doesn't fit at all. Let's see. It was almost tempting to leave it off so you could see the engine. But the engine, the engine's okay, but I could really spend like months working on just the engine because I could try to replicate things like the ignition wires, that kind of stuff that would just be taking the model to absurd lengths. Yes, it is. I'm doing lots of things to it, like the seat, trying to make the seat look somewhat authentic, and then chickening out and not rounding off the bit that was round as opposed to trapezoidal. Yeah, there's a problem here because of the the ever-present molding circles, making their presence known not just on the bottom, where they are fairly invisible, but also on the top, where they are intruding. It was a wise decision to not try to clean up those tiny little pieces at this point in the stream. I mean, I practically dropped this. In fact, I did drop it, but it's big, so that wasn't a problem. But if it was one of those little tiny pieces, it would have been half lost. I don't know if I should. I think I might. Circles are just really annoyingly bad in the wrong place. They're not going to be visible. I think I will leave them alone. Otherwise, it will create more of a problem than a help. There you are. It looks symmetric from the outside, so that's the important thing. There aren't any sprue attachments on this because, as far as I can tell, it wasn't attached to anything, just like the radiator. I don't understand. Sometimes things are just oddly mysterious. Well, if I can get this primed, then I can. It has a stripe on it here. Oh, that's not good. Okay, there's a lump here. That is a problem from the molding process. Just an excess plastic in a very difficult spot because there's also a line there that is supposed to be there. I'm going to have to maybe get rid of the line, the raised line, in order to get rid of this and make it look okay. I'm just going to do that. Just take it off. Because that has to go. Kind of an unexpected problem, but I'm glad I rotated it so I could see it. When these things come out of the mold, sometimes they, here's another spot here. They carry extra plastic with them. That's maybe no, that's supposed to be there. That's like like bolts or something. Sometimes it just carries a lump of plastic with it, and that is what happened here. So it looks like I may end up. I really want to finish this so that I can prime it. Yeah, and these things always happen in a place that's highly visible too. It's never like, oh, let's do it like on the bottom or the inside or something like that. No, nope. It's just right there in the front of everything else. I don't know why there would be a seam here anyway, so I'm happy just to take it off. Yeah, this was the downside of using the coarser sandpaper, is having to polish out the little. But this finishes up time anyway. I mean, it's ready to be primed. Hopefully it'll look okay. And I went silent here at the end. So come back on Wednesday. See how this looks. See how that looks yellow. Get some pieces that are primed. Maybe I'll paint this one yellow also. And if I'm very lucky, the hobby shop will have the tape that I need so that I can start moving forward with the creation of a yellow stripe on a green car. To be able to do that would be a big step forward in the completion of the model. And most of Wednesday is going to be prepping these tiny little bits so that they can be primed and then painted in more appropriate metallic. think I'm getting still a lump there. So close. Yeah, these pieces of sheet metal that are bent over like this are not supposed to have lumps on them like that. Just not. That's one way to use up the last 15 minutes of the stream, is discovering a significant flaw in the molding and then polishing it out so one can move forward with the next steps of applications of paint. Hopefully this will look okay once it's primed. I will find out. Yeah, of course there is. No, I'm just not getting where I need to be with this. Just there's an edge along the bottom. Just another, the lip of excess plastic that oozed out. So where it's supposed to be like concave in, there's an edge convex out. It's just a thin lip of plastic that comes from the injection molding process. I wonder, someday I should probably look up, like, hi, I am a master modeler and I make amazing models, and this is never a problem for me. Because what do they do? Do they have little bits of sandpaper like this, and do they scrape away at it until it's gone? They have something else. They have like tiny little polishing machines or something that do it for them. Unpaid interns, maybe. Maybe that's it. Or this is done off screen, so you don't have to watch 15 minutes of sanding away at a plastic part in order to make it look not crappy. Okay, there it is. Looking not crappy, or at least less crappy than it was looking before while it was looking crappy. Not going to be on there. There isn't much of an edge there. I want to do the inside first, and then I'll flip it over and do the outside. That's the better way to do it. Okay. Well, as usual, there's always something. The always something today was painting the little bits of black on the exhaust. Okay. And then making a mess of it. And then having to sand it down. And then having to reapply it. And no, it looks okay. It looks okay. I'm okay with it. Did some sanding, pulled these parts off, haven't lost any yet. Went through a bunch of paper towels, clamped another wheel. Yeah, so that's what's going to happen between now and Wednesday is that these bits are going to get primed. That doesn't seem like much, but at least I'll see whether I need to keep working on the seams or not. I'm going to yellow this, make it all yellow, so that I can hopefully get the right tape and paint it and see if I can get the stripe to work. This is the safest part that you can't see. This is the safest part to do it on. The stripe goes like right across here. If I can pull that off, great. If I can't, I can. It's a nice, smooth surface. I can, without a lot of molded on detail, I can just sand it down again and try something else. So this will come off. There, come on, camera guy. Focus on things. This will come off on Wednesday. Hopefully the tire doesn't split. I will then cement the fourth one, and those will get ready to be detailed. I'll clean them off and then reapply the white to the Firestone raised bits. I'll be working on these. That'll be tedious, and hopefully I won't lose any. I might work over a tray. I've done that before with little parts. I've got this little bit of a tray. If I can find it again, that I might set down so that I can, if I drop a part, there's edges around it and it doesn't go flying. Well, it'll go flying, but hopefully it won't go flying to a place where I can't find it. Thanks, everybody. I'll be back on Wednesday doing more stuff. Nothing went terribly wrong today. There's just the usual amount of going wrong. And some things went okay. You can hardly see any progress from the efforts that were made today, which is maybe okay. I mean, that might just be okay, that hardly any progress was done, because that's become the motto of this show. The motto of the stream is getting hardly anything done, but taking a long time to do it. I'll keep repeating that. I like that. It just seems to fit so well. I'll be back Wednesday. Thanks, everybody. See you then.